Everyone, I wanted to provide a quick walkthrough. I realized that the link from last year doesn't work for this final project in BIN 501. So there are so many different ways that you can approach this problem of pulling the data down from NCBI Biosample, looking at all of the survey information, providing a plot summary so people can see, okay, the information really downloaded correctly, and then figuring out a way to download a summary. This is one method. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through how I set up my script, look at how it runs, look at how I did some troubleshooting, and then you can decide how you want to approach your final project. So I used a lot of different libraries. You don't have to use them all. RVest and HTTR were helpful for parsing the data from NCBI Biosample and scraping. Tidyverse, Shiny, Reshape, all were really helpful for changing the data so that I would be able to get it into different formats for plotting and downloading. And then I used our color brewer just to quickly have a color palette for my pie chart. I also added near these library commands options, and all of this is before the UI or the server. Options makes it so that there's more memory available. And if you pull all 400 IDs or several hundred IDs, you're really going to want that so that your Shiny app is able to run a little bit faster and won't crash. Because I want to be able to run lapply on the list of IDs that I read in, I am going to use functions. So I have a read survey function. It uses the read HTML command on a pasted bit of text, which is the beginning of the URL for all of the biosample results, and then the ID number. I also want to have a function to filter to only one question in the survey. So here I picked one of the earliest questions, dominant hand, and that's going to help be able to do a quick summary for one question only. As you go through your script, you want to make sure that you're doing everything in parallel. So you're setting up your UI and you're setting up your server. I have a third file. I have a style sheet. So I use the HTML CSS style, like, CSS file. And so these CSS files just give you a quick way to define like what the background color of your website is, what bodies, tables, sidebars all look like. You don't have to do that. It really, it's just for me, it kind of lets all my Shiny apps look similar to each other. I have a title panel, a sidebar panel, a main panel. In the sidebar panel, that's where I put the file input slider and then an action button to load the plot. For the main panel, I have a head table output command, which just lets me preview any of the variables that I'm creating in server. So since the variables aren't going to show up in the environment, I often do a panel like this, just have it be in the main panel. And then I'll actually comment out all three of these lines before I'm done with the app. So it's just there while I'm troubleshooting it, but I'll show you kind of a little bit how it works. And then define the server logic. So I'm going to have all these different reactive variables to store the data as I, step one, read in the file. Step two, just get the single column in the file that defines the IDs. Step three is create a reactive variable to put the survey data in. So I'm going to run that function that I defined, read survey. Step four is to run the function small list, because that's going to take the very large list, melt it into a single data frame with all the responses for that one question on handedness. Then I'm going to make a reactive variable that is easy to plot with ggplot. And finally, I'll make a reactive variable that will go into the data export file. I also need to define any of the UI components here. So the slider, the text that's in the table that's going to go into the head, and the plot, as well as the download. So what is actually going to be written to that file. So if I run the app, we can see how it works. I'm going to pull in the text file. I'm going to click show plot. and you can see how many people said I'm right-handed versus left-handed. And then I can click and download the survey data and open it up, and I can see, okay, here are my responses, and it matches the pie chart. 4 people said right-handed and 1 person said left-handed. If I change the number of samples, it should update, click show plot, and I can see, okay, now I get a different number of responses. And it's kind of funny, if I make it a little bit bigger, I have some people who are going to show up as lowercase. So it's just a different way to do it. And you should be able to play around with that tool. So once you feel comfortable with how your script is running, you can go back in and you can go to the main panel and you can hide by commenting out the lines, the preview, and then you can figure out like what other things you want to change about sort of how it's showing up. But I think this overall approach of creating data as individual reactive elements, having a head command where you're previewing them, it just is a really nice tool. And then when you know that like, okay, it definitely works and I feel like my app does what I want it to, you can comment out those sections in both the UI and the server. So that's my advice as you guys work through your final project. I hope you have fun with this project and are creative. It really is a valuable thing for me to see your solutions, because I think everyone kind of approaches this problem differently. And I hope to kind of put some of the best ideas together to help the seniors who are working on American Gut projects, thesis projects this year with me. So good luck, and I look forward to seeing what solutions you find.